Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF Everything in That Shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF Everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And it's banned
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom. Well, we're here. We're at
Mhm.
Captain America, the first Avenger. And much like I feared, I'm like, yeah, it's just the one that I like. So I don't really I'm not like, oh, here's what I was just like, yeah, I like these movies. I think all three Captain America movies are good.
Yeah.
They get better as they go. It's not like I'm like, this is perfect. Nothing could change about it. It's just that I'm like, this was a very good first go of it.
I think one of the biggest things that was an issue for me before the movie came out with this character, between this character and Thor, is which character is more believable, Thor or Captain America? Because for some reason the Bruce Banner stuff didn't enter that debate for me. The science part of it actually made sense enough to me to be like, cool, I can believe this. But I guess for this part, the difficulty was selling the patriotism in a modern day, or even in that setting, without being overly ridiculous. And then in Thor, selling Asgard and the cosmic elements of it that early on in the world, and making it believable. And to me, this one is just before we witnessed this, and then afterwards I'm like, it's no debate whatsoever. This is believable even to now. I'm like, if you told me that this were to happen, I'd be like, yeah, okay, everything about this makes so much sense. It's so well told. The writing in this franchise of Captain America is just the strongest thing ever. But then it's just so good. It's just incredibly good. It stands up.
I think that's also something, is that it's always, what's the guys like, McFeely and something, McFeely and Marcus.
And McFeely, yeah.
Yeah, so like they also wrote Thor: The Dark World, but like, because it was always them writing for Captain America, you can actually see through lines throughout, like, and that play into Infinity War and Endgame, because they wrote those as well. But like, because they didn't write, I only mentioned that because they didn't write Avengers and they didn't write Age of Ultron. So what's good is that you can have that consistency in writers. You don't have it in director, but I think this was a good first movie. Like, yes. Joe Johnston, I think that was a good choice for a first Captain America movie, because you get what they're going for. It's like this like fun like adventure. Like I mean that like, it's not just like I don't mean that to throw it away. I mean, like, this is like an adventure movie more than it is like a war movie. Yes, there's elements of that, but it feels more like this adventure you're going on.
I agree. Because you seem like, and it's really, really a good choice of director, because like his stuff before Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Jumanji, Jurassic Park 3, these are very adventure-based things. Like Jurassic Park.
Did he do Rocketeer as well?
Yes, he did. He did also Rocketeer. And you know, these are movies that really take you on an adventure to a new world, and whether it be in a miniaturized version of the world we already see through a different light, Jumanji, board game, Jurassic Park, obviously at that point, at Jurassic Park 3, bringing them back to the island, but experiencing something different. Whether or not that movie was accomplished, but I think successfully is Jumanji for sure.
The thing about Joe Johnston is he's like a Spielberg guy. I'm pretty sure he did work on Return of the Jedi. So he's kind of in the Lucas camp as well, which for me is clear when Cap is doing the like motorcycle chase, which just looks like the speeder chase in Return of the Jedi.
Absolutely.
Like, I feel like it's got the same beats and everything.
It does.
Like,
it really
does. Same sound cues at some points, but like, and I'm not saying that to be like, oh, what a lazy guy. It's just like, I like that he got this chance to like flex his muscle in terms of visually throughout
Yeah.
this movie as well, and just his sensibility. I think this movie is very much a Joe Johnston sensibility, which makes sense because this movie is supposed to feel like a throwback for all the right reasons. Like, hey, like we just did Iron Man and Thor, which are still in the modern day, but let's throw it back. Let's do a throwback movie. So you get Joe Johnston, who I feel like does that well. Like if that's what you're looking for, that's a good choice.
Exactly. And even that, you can feel the Spielberg from the Raiders inspiration throughout the whole thing. It's very, he was the right person for this first effort. Where it went,
I'm glad they changed it up, because you can't keep this energy for the next movie. But that's also why I like the trilogy. It did what Thor Ragnarok did, but quicker. It was like, all right, yeah, like we need to switch this up.
Yeah, for sure.
Sucks
this
for Joe Johnston, I guess, but like it worked for the audience. Unless he didn't want to keep working with Marvel, like that's fine as well.
That I'm not too sure of. That I'm very certain you would know more of than I would have. But I'm very happy with the director here, because you see the things that they had, his directing credits beforehand and his work beforehand. You're like, it's a good blend of everything that really helped looked at us, our childhood, and created Captain America here. So it really worked well for that, and I really liked it. It was really good.
And for me, you were talking about like what kind of was going to be a hurdle for you going into it. For me, it was like, I do not care about Captain America in the comics. I've always, and this is my thing, I've just dismissed him as like a Marvel Superman. And I feel like what this movie did was break down what is good about Captain America. Even if I know people that don't like this version of Captain America because he's not like the comics, but I do think this movie did a good job of being like, here's how everyone can get on board with a guy named Captain America.
I agree.
Doesn't care about like, oh, I hate Germans, and this is for the, like, he wants to serve his country, but it's because he doesn't like bullies, and he wants to, like, when you look at who he actually bumps up against, it's all these bullies, like the guy in the movie theater who is an American, and he's like, no, fuck this guy. And like he bumps up against the like is it a governor? I don't even remember who it is, but like he's bumping up against these people in America who do actually represent the bad stuff of America. And it's so you can get on board with someone who's like, no, like I want things to be better. It's not, he isn't trying to like, what I liked about it is there's the line of like, I just don't like bullies. I don't care where they're from, which immediately gets me on board. But it's more when I rewatch it this time, all his actions are about like, I'm not trying to preserve anything. I'm actually trying to make things better, which is good. Like, I feel like that's an actually good trait for him to have. And that's seen when he's like, oh no, I'm not going to like just do what they say. Like, I'm not going to like wait for my orders. I know how to help. I'm going to do it right now. And that comes up again in Civil War when he's like, well, what if we know where we have to go and they won't let us? And it's like, you see that in this first movie, him being like, oh, I can assess the situation and be like, no, like I need to go do this now. And it will make things better. It won't just keep the status quo.
It's a very interesting blend of just him being anti-evil. Like his morals are definitely the strongest out of any Marvel kind of thing, because regardless of where his allegiances are, he will always stand by the moral aspect of it. And that's what
unless it comes to Bucky, which is what I like, is that's his Achilles heel, is the Bucky stuff. It doesn't really get played up in this movie, but like you see their bond in this. And even if I'm not like, oh, they're best friends, like, yes, I can visually see they're best friends. You know, even if I don't feel that connection, I see what it does to him when Bucky dies. And you can also see that like most of his stuff is like propelled by like, I need to find Bucky. I need to get Bucky back. And then when he feels like he's the one that killed Bucky, that's where you see him actually like down and out. That's where he has no more things. So it's like, you're right. He is the guy that has the right morals, but we see even in Winter Soldier, definitely in
definitely Winter Soldier,
Civil War, he'll throw that out if it means he can help Bucky. And I feel like that's what's good, because
he's still, one thing Red Skull, a human element to the character. Very
Red Skull brings this thing to him where he's like, we're the same. Stop trying to act like them. Like,
Correct.
and then for this movie, and I feel like it only really works in this movie, is that's what you're worried about. You're not worried about,
Yes.
oh, is he going to get shot and die? It's more like, will he be able to maintain his humanity, or is he going to turn into a Red Skull, some version of it?
And
Like, obviously the movie is.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, obviously the movie is like, he's not Red Skull, but he has the potential to lose his connection to humanity the way Red Skull did, and you don't want that for him.
And the very interesting thing is it's almost like you need that connection, that irrational connection to him and Bucky, versus like his irrational connection towards Bucky is like, no, I'm gonna really just turn a blind eye to a lot of these things that I would otherwise do if it weren't for you. And that humanizes him so much, because Red Skull wouldn't have that. Red Skull would not have any kind of wavering thing from what he believes in. Not his, it just whatever he believes in, it's just blind commitment to it. Or not, I wouldn't say blind commitment, but it's a definite.
But it is kind of a blind commitment. It's the Red Skull is kind of like the Thanos in terms of like, I can't let stuff like that get in the way of my ultimate goal.
Correct, because even he'll throw away his biggest ally or biggest aid up until that point. But in all fairness, it was like, yeah, you turn on him first. But he will it's after a realization. It's like, Red Skull's going to throw me away, just like whatever. He already did in the burning pit and all this kind of stuff, right? He's let me fight for myself, so he did. And that's what the issue with Red Skull is you can't, like, a lot of people cannot connect with him, not based. Just if you take the violence and all that kind of stuff away, just the pure commitment to something, and not having an exception to the rule, an irrational exception. That irrational exception, Bucky really does humanize him, and it's great to see that.
And I did like the love story. I thought that was a really good way, because of who the director is, because it's supposed to be this adventure. You do think that, like, I mean, if you know the comics, you're like, wow, how are they going to pay this off? Because like, the way this movie is going, he's obviously going to have to like have that first dance with Peggy and like have a nice time. But you know, this is all going to go to shit because of how the movie starts. If you're not a comic book person, but if you are a comic book person, you know, like, well, they're all going to die before he gets to talk to them again. And then like, I thought it was so good that they made a point of ending on that whole like, oh, I had a date. Like it isn't a happy ending. It's this ending of like, you lost everything and now you're like out to sea without any bearings in this new world. And like, that's where they end it. It's not, you don't end it on like, you don't even get to end it on his sacrifice and then be like, oh man, like wonder what happens. It's like, no, like your last memory of that movie is that he woke up and had nobody. And I genuinely like that.
Oh, yeah, and all that is familiar to him is war at that point.
And that's why he would go right into the Avengers. Like, I guess this is what I can do to feel normal.
It's really, really wonderful. Even the attempt of like we like made that facade to try to ease you into it. It's just like this time watching, I really liked his attention to detail, because like for me, it was only ever the like, yeah, he recognizes that they played something that was, I think, 2 or 3 years too late or too early. Like, they played it too early. Ball game or something like that.
Yeah, it's like, wait, this already happened. You're playing this like at the wrong time. But like throughout the movie, you see all the ways that he has like attention to detail. I mean, I guess it's also clear in the flagpole thing as well. That's another like clear thing. But I feel like there's a bunch of subtle things where it's like he has analyzed this situation and like very quickly, and he's like, okay, this is what's happening. And I really like, and
very quick assessment, and it's just like he's very self-aware and then aware of the situation at really all times, right?
And it's not like that's his superpower. He had that before he got the injection.
Absolutely.
But yeah, he's just a guy that you're like, I can root for him. He's not just the Boy Scout that's like holding up
absolutely right.
ideas.
You're absolutely right. He is definitely not the Boy Scout, and that's what really makes me like this character, just like more than anything else. Because every rendition of this character prior to this that I've experienced, and that's not saying a lot, has been very pro-America, patriotic. Like this
Yeah.
is what, or based in like the experience you get from him in a fighting game, which is like how does Captain America be pro-America in a game where you're fighting for the universe? It's just like, well, you're pro everything at that point. You
Yeah.
have to. So and of course that's how it plays out. Obviously, but the fun thing is it really does unite everything together so well. The way they wrote it, from the nostalgia throwbacks and the inspirations to everything. This character is so well done. Oh God, where was I going with that? Sorry, I'm gonna let you get this one. Yeah.
I'll try and speak loosely so you can think of your idea. But yeah, I think another thing I liked was how strong of a character Peggy Carter was. And I don't mean that like, oh, she could beat people up. I just mean like that she makes up like her presence known like in her first scene. You're not like, I didn't have to warm to her. Like I liked her right away. It's not an actress I knew before this movie either. Like it's just like to like give somebody who doesn't really have visibility outside of this movie up until this point. I've seen her in other things since, but like Haley Atwell, like to like just basically plant a flag in the ground and be like, this is Peggy Carter. I was like, that's really, I mean, they made 2 seasons of a show with her after the fact. Like it was a big deal.
Yep.
I just think she does such a good job of being her own person. I think that's why the love story works for me, is because it's not like it's this woman who's swooning. You can see that this is someone who like has her own opinions and higher ranking than him, like respected by other people, and even she likes him. It kind of get I think it's what they try to do with Lois Lane in Superman.
Yeah.
Of like, even in the comics, which I haven't read as much, but like definitely in that first movie of like Lois Lane is a no nonsense person, and even she likes Superman, or well, yeah, she doesn't really like Ken Clark or whatever his name is, Clark Kent, but she likes Superman, and so that if you are, you know, prone to liking Superman, you'd be like, yeah, see, like even this smart person doesn't have to, you don't have to put female male on it, but like this smart person, this discerning person likes him. And I think that helps, is that Peggy's admiration for Steve helps you as well kind of get on board with him.
Absolutely. To speak, yeah, I feel like the Lois Lane, to compare it to the Lois Lane Superman thing, is I feel like Lois Lane and Clark Kent, Lois Lane likes Clark Kent on some level of she can overpower him.
Yeah, no, I shouldn't have said, I meant more the Superman thing of like,
yeah,
because yeah, it doesn't work if you're talking about Clark Kent. That's a different relationship.
It totally. But this is what I like about the Steve Rogers thing, and removing the identity aspect from it, the double identity aspect 100%. Of it. Run into that awkward kind of thing is like, well, we really don't credit you very much from not being able to recognize the exact same face, first and foremost.
Well, that's what I liked about Man of Steel as well, is that they got rid of that as well.
Yeah.
She knows him as Superman first, and then is like, oh, you're going to pretend to be Clark Kent? Great.
Yeah. So I do like the idea, the fact that they removed that. That works for me so much better, and we can just get on with it. And that's what I like about it, right? There's no qualms about his identity at all. And I think there's this aspect with Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter here. The romance I like here is that it really is based on admiration on each other, and that's what I really like about it. It's a co-admiration versus the Superman Clark Kent slash
like swooning for him
is based on a deception kind of thing immediately, right? There's like they're both at the same level even before the super serum, and I really like that in terms
she's higher status than him.
No, I mean not in terms of status, in terms of like their volition and like how strong they both are as characters, right? He will not back down, she will not back down either, and I like that strength is what I find they're really attracted to. and within that, there's like, okay, within your strength, I'm able to be vulnerable, because when they're able to be vulnerable together, it's actually the most beautiful thing. And then every scene they're apart, they're like super, super strong, and it's like the best thing ever.
Yeah, no, I like the car ride and the like whole you've never danced before metaphor. Like I like those moments a lot.
Yeah, yeah. His and the one thing that does bother me about a little bit is his insecurity in the plane ride with the Howard Stark thing with the fondue kind of reference.
Mhm.
That little, it bothered me. It bothers me just a little bit, but actually not at all, because it's
Yeah,
just
it doesn't bother me. That's helping. It shows like even with his superpowers, he's like, oh, like I could lose this, and I feel like it speaks to like, yeah, like why is this woman talking to me? She could have anyone, especially this like Howard Stark guy, who's
Mhm,
like this like playboy millionaire.
mhm. Yeah, the thing I meant to say is, like, originally, because I always want to think back to the first time I watched it versus now.
Mhm.
Originally, the first time I watched it was like, there was like, ah, grow up a little bit. You're being a little silly and jealous there. But now I'm like, no, this works out really, really well. I prefer to see this instead of him being like, turn a blind eye and be like, I don't care about this. I'm like, no, this works way better.
Yeah, he cares, and I like the idea that it's another reminder that this serum didn't change him. Like
Yes.
it didn't change who he is fundamentally. He's this guy that's not good with women and he just doesn't get it. He doesn't know that stuff. The serum didn't make him better at that. It didn't even give him the confidence to believe that Peggy would just like him and can still have relationships with other men. Like
Yeah.
I think it's good. I think that's a very good thing to keep in there.
Yeah, and then I mean, the parallel with the Natalie Dormer like the kiss thing, where there was jealousy on her end too. That was really, really fun, and yeah, those two scenes really worked well.
I like it not because it's fun to me. I like it because it's like she she actually not broke down. She was vulnerable, as you said, this time.
Yep.
And then was like, oh, he is just like everybody else. Fuck this guy. Like it was just this disappointment. And I think that's a very good, strong character moment too, of like it is a moment of Captain America. It is a moment where the serum changes him and he takes
Yep.
that kiss. Because
Yep.
he's like, yeah, like nice. And I know he does it reluctantly, but he is still like slipping into that. And then he pulls, I mean, who knows where that would have gone if she didn't show up. But like
That is one
it
of those
stops
situations.
him. It stops. He does stop himself, and because, as I said, for this movie, it is sliding away. Like you're hoping he doesn't go further to the Red Skull side of losing that humanity, or losing what it is that made him the right choice for this serum in the first place.
Yeah.
But I do really like that as well. That it's an issue he has, but where like he's starting to be like, yeah, like these powers, and then it's a moment for Peggy. It isn't just what's happening to Steve. It's also a moment for Peggy where it's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I let my guard down, and that this guy is like this.
Yeah. It really, yeah, it really does have that authenticity of double down of like, oh yeah, you jerk. You
and it's not like she's like cries about it or anything. It's like, no, like, all right, fuck you. That's what you're like. Let's get back to work. Yes,
Yep.
she does shoot him with the thing, but obviously she wasn't trying to kill him. Like I'm sure
Exactly.
she knew what that shield could do.
That's just a fun little moment. It's just like, hey,
that's how she blew off her steam. Like,
yeah, it's great. I like that scene a lot.
I really like. Oh my goodness, I almost called him Samuel Jackson. I really like Tommy Lee Jones in this. Again, I have no clue whether he wanted to be in this movie or not. I thought I remember reading that he did not want to, but I couldn't find it again. He's great in this. I love his steak interrogation scene. I think that's such a strong scene with Zola. Like just like you get to see the spy stuff like work. And I know he's a full-on spy, but just the way he's teasing the information out, or even not, it's just he already knows the truth and how he gets Zola to just like lay out the plan. I thought it was really good. He's like, see, everyone has been killing themselves except for you, so you want to live, so you will give me the information so that you can keep living. And I was like, nice, good for you, man. Like, you don't have to punch anybody in this movie. You can use your brain.
Yeah. His I guess whether or not he wanted to be there, you cannot tell in his performance. And
It's
really,
just great. I love it.
feel like it's one of those situations where I can't tell if Tommy Lee Jones at this point in anything wants to be anywhere. He's just like this
He's
general
kind of
level
slowed
of
down on his movies.
pissed off. That's really, really great. He brings that to this role, and it's really, really good. It's like, I don't want to be here. Nobody wants to be here right now.
I
And
love when I
It's
love when Captain America like basically reveals that Peggy told him where Bucky was, and he just looks at Peggy and he's like, "You and me are gonna have a conversation later that you're not gonna like." Like, I was like, yeah, nice line delivery.
Yep.
Of like, you fucked up.
But you know what? The one thing I will say that was very, very odd to me that I noticed this time around was that even as Captain America, the role and all that kind of stuff, they recognize him. Like, I get the whole like, oh yeah, you have to earn the role kind of thing, and he did that, getting the soldiers out of camp. But they legit give him like any kind of freedom and power that he wants to fight. He's got his own special unit to do literally anything he wants. It gets kind of crazy from there at that point on, right? Like, to you, don't you think it's like, no, like he's bypassed this whole system that Tommy Lee Jones so believes in and all this kind of stuff. It's like, no, we will recognize you as captain. You've given yourself that role. We agree with it. That part does scratch my mind a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Not for me, because that was the point. I mean, he wanted more people like Captain America, but once it shows he's not a song and dance guy, like, what's the point of keeping him on the bench?
I guess the point, yeah, I guess he was registered. I guess he is a soldier. I guess all those things are
Yeah,
true.
this is the whole point of it.
Like, they're like, yeah, okay, I guess we agree with this rank. Like, that happened pretty damn fast, and I was like, but
okay, I mean, yes, the rank, if you're thinking about that, I don't think about it in terms of people being like, you are a genuine captain in the army. I just look at it as like, that was his nickname, it stuck. He is a leader though, so let him lead.
Okay.
I didn't really look at it as anyone taking that seriously, because again, with the tone of the movie, it's more mocking him, calling him Captain America, and him coming to terms with like, whatever, I'll use it. Like, that's I am a leader. Other people recognize me as a leader. And that's when Sebastian's like, are you ready? Sebastian's like, yeah, I guess I am kind of like growing into it. Like, it's growing on me. Sorry. But I believe the Captain America thing is a facetious thing.
Okay.
It's not. I don't think that he's like actually a captain in the army.
Because at that point, he would just be like a private or like whatever at that point. Because he would have just been like performing on the road and doing the road show.
But I think they did that because they're like,
not there real fast. But super soldier, right? How do you rank a super soldier?
Yeah, it was one of those things where like, I completely understand that he was able to like break off and do his own thing, because
Fair enough.
he already had proof of concept. It was like, it worked, but let's not just throw him out there into the field. Let's hold off on that. And then he went and did his own thing, and it worked. And so it was like, well, he has all the information and the capabilities to do it. So why would we stop that?
You know, one part that works really, really, really well for me is that the entire roadshow part, that musical scene where they're just going like,
Man
no,
with a plan.
Yeah, we are actually going to poke fun of the character, show you exactly what he was used for during this period of time, and it's almost like that. Let you kind of, yeah, we've gotten over that in this universe. Let's move into the really serious stuff now. I think those scenes really, really did help the character become what we have at the end of the movie. It really worked well, because it, like, everything, there's a tongue-in-cheek laughing at it, beginning of everything, and then through the audience actually doing it. I actually really enjoyed that scene.
Yeah, I like it. I think it makes sense. And what I was thinking while that was happening during that scene in particular is like, see, this is a movie that is showing someone who needs to earn the like power they get at the end, and it at no point does this feel claustrophobic the way Thor does.
Yes.
And I don't know, like, you would think that yes, there is more like scenery you can do with a movie set during a war, but you also, when you've got a Norse god, it seems like you could have a similar amount of like a feeling of open world than what we got in Thor. And I was just like, yeah, this just makes me double down on liking the Captain America trilogy of like how this one feels so like sprawling because you're literally going over the world. Like at one point you're in Norway to see Red Skull get the Tesseract, and then like you're all over Europe and in the States. But then the second one is basically just DC. I mean, yes, they go somewhere else, but it still feels like a big deal because of what's at stake. It doesn't feel as claustrophobic. And then then you get into Civil War, and then it is what it is. But yeah, I really thought that they did a good job with this of again, like I said at the beginning, like you feel like you're going on an adventure.
Yeah, you really do.
And even when he's being squelched and like contained, you as the audience don't feel contained. You're still seeing everything, and like it feels like something is happening. It doesn't feel like wheel spinning.
Mm-hmm, this movie is so effective at just taking you on that adventure from place to place so much more successfully than Thor: Dark World. It really is.
No, I mean Thor the first one.
Would have been. I mean, sorry.
I mean the first Thor.
The first Thor. You're right. I don't know why I said Dark World for some reason.
Yeah, whatever.
The first Thor. It does a more successful job of doing that, and I don't know if it's because I'm like, there's just more of a believability within the setting of World War II, even though there's this cosmic element of the Tesseract that's bleeding throughout the movie. That's kind of reminding you that no, we're not in actual World War II.
Yeah, they're not even fighting the Nazis. I mean, it is an offshoot of, but it is Hydra. Like it's like,
yeah. And I like how I you know what the thing I really noticed this time was the idea that they use Hydra was like, no, we've grown out of Hitler's wing, and they're just like, that's how they written that part out of that whole the movie. It's like, no, Hitler's like less than us at this point.
mm-hmm.
We're bigger than Hitler ever will be. Hail Hydra. And I'm like, that part is so crazy to this movie. Because it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, World War II, this is how you suspend belief. It's like, okay, we really wrote that part away from the reality, and it works really, really well because you're like, yep, it's still kind of there, but it runs alongside so well. So well.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of all of that. Who else I like Bucky. He's nice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I also I think sorry, what?
I don't think he's I like what they're at, but I actually, because of where he goes missing in this movie, like just smack down in the middle of it, it really does. You kind of forget about him toward the end. So I'm glad he makes such a big impact in 2.
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing, is he died, and I was like, yeah, but he'll be back. So it's not. It's like, even the first time I saw it, I was like, yeah, he'll be back. It's fine. And again, not like I only knew him from Hot Tub Time Machine before that movie, so it's not like he was
pretty much
this. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, some of these actors, it wasn't like a Tommy Lee Jones where I'm like, well, they're not just going to get him from one movie. Like, I'm sure, like, I was also kind of like, how are they going to bring Tommy Lee Jones back? Whereas, like, for Sebastian Stan, I was just like, well, I mean, I know he will be back, but like, good casting in the sense of people could believe, like, well, I don't even know who this guy is outside of this movie. So yeah, I guess he's just dead. Sucks for Cap.
Yeah.
And another smart thing is aging him up. He's not like Captain America's little friend in this.
Mm-hmm.
So you could just be like, yeah, I guess that's just a friend he lost. You might not be like, well, he has to come back, because that's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
The Howling Commandos were good.
They were wonderful.
Dum Dum Dugan, and I don't remember the other.
Obviously, all had the biggest presence of all of them. I don't mind that at all, because he's such a fun character to be around. He's so good. Like, when they're in the tank, that is just good fun.
The Wahoo stuff, and I was like, I guess that's from the comics. I'm glad they got that in there. And it doesn't feel. I mean, to be fair, I'm gonna say this. Anytime someone puts something in a movie from the comics, I'm like, good. I'm glad they put that catchphrase in. Except for kind of Cyborg and Justice League, I was just like, what a weird booyah.
Yeah, it was booyah. It's just like,
it didn't
was
sell
that
it the way Dum Dum Dugan sold his Wahoo in this movie.
Yes,
I
it
was
was
like,
like
yeah,
a different
nice.
spirit of the booyah. It's just like, oh, that's how you're going to use booyah in this movie.
Yeah.
That really wasn't. But I don't think that's just based on the writers there.
Yeah.
This
That's
like, oh, you're doing it in the heat of the moment. Like a cowabunga is a
Mhm.
hard line of like, well, no, not in that universe, but there's something that's, oh, God, there's some lines that are written just so cheesily in the comic books that's really hard to sell in current day dialogue, right?
well. I
Like I
thought
always think the MJ line of like, "You got it, Tiger." I'm like, oh yeah, that is cringy out
Go
loud.
Get Him, Tiger.
Yeah,
I think it works in Spider-Man too. Like for
in
like
Spider-Man 2, yes, but
yeah, but I don't know that she does it ever again because as we talked about when we revisited that seemed like kind of a real doomed relationship type thing that didn't really ever work
yeah,
out.
it never had.
They really hung their hat on something that didn't really work out ever.
Yeah.
It worked out for that moment of Go Get Him, Tiger, and you're like,
Mm,
I guess that's the happiest they'll ever be because
mm,
she looks sad immediately after saying it.
yep.
But yeah, I think everyone like it's a movie with a lot of characters, and considering you're not going to see any of, no, I shouldn't say any of, you're only going to see Bucky and Peggy again.
Mhm.
Everyone feels like they weren't just written in to be killed off. Like I mean, and that's, you know what I mean, like in the sense of like, just they weren't just written in as people that he'll be sad that he can't see again.
Correct.
It felt like, oh, these are real people, like these are people worth investing in, and I thought
Yeah,
they did a good job with that.
they did a really good job with that, and you know, and I feel like to me, there's going to be a lot of. I'm going to draw a lot of parallels or comparisons, not parallels,
Hmm.
comparisons from this to Thor, because there's so many, like from even the Lady Sif and the Warriors 3. You know, we know that we're going to spend more time with them in future movies. In this one, we know we're
Not in
not.
any meaningful way though.
Yeah, by the end of the movie, but there is more care spent with these characters, I feel,
Hmm.
than with the characters in Thor and what they get developed into and all that kind of stuff. It really is so well done the way they're writing it here, right? It's just really well done,
Yeah.
and I like that Easter egg also of that actor that basically gets the same role in no, not the same role. He's
Oh,
the
he plays the grandson in Spider-Man
grandson
Homecoming.
in Spider-Man: Homecoming. Yeah,
Yeah, so the principal in Spider-Man Homecoming is related to
yeah,
the, because what is he saying like this? He's like, what he's like, oh, we're just taking anyone now, and he's like, I'm from Frisco, asshole, or so. I can't
yeah,
remember what he's. I can't
yeah. He
remember the
does say,
character name.
I'm from Frisco because they're like obviously implying he's from the Japanese side, right? And then
Well,
he's like,
the
nope,
idea, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And that was really good. It's like, hey, I'm from Frisco, asshole. And he's like, yeah, okay. Immediately, he's like, yep, we're good. That was really fun.
Jim Morita. I mean, that's so Kenneth Choi is playing Jim Morita,
Yeah,
and then in Homecoming he plays Principal Morita, who
nice.
is a descendant of Jim.
Yeah,
So
I like that touch.
I like that, and I also it doesn't match up as much, but this might be the first time we see an actor in a Marvel movie that's going to play a completely different character later,
Yeah,
because I think the first woman that says hello to Cap during a montage is then plays Peter Quill's mom,
correct.
and obviously not playing the same character.
Yes,
And then I guess
That's-
later we'll have Gemma Chan playing just a completely different character. I don't count the Kenneth Choi stuff because that feels like that was just continuity of you're playing a relative of a character you already played. Whereas
it feels
these two women, Gemma Chan and I'll look up her name, but those two women are just like, no, you're just playing two different characters.
yeah.
It is what it is.
This seems authentic versus the Gemma Chan and the Peter Quill mom and Captain America admiration person here feels like, I hope we don't notice that on their
Laura
part.
Haddock. Laura
Laura
Haddock is the one
Yeah.
that plays Peter Quill's mom and Autograph Seeker.
Autograph seeker. There we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, good times. But yeah, so though I like the attention they gave to Kenneth Choi's character for Jim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's as I said, I felt like everyone felt like they belong in this movie more than just people who are gonna be um to prop up our lead. Like they
Yeah.
weren't just there, like, because realistically it seemed like the Howling Commandos just had their own thing going on. They're
Mhm.
like, yeah, cool, Captain America's here, but it's like, no, we got our own thing like that we're dealing with.
Yeah. The thing I liked about it is the Howling Commandos definitely were like this own unit before Captain America joined. Is like,
Mhm.
okay, the cost of admission is you buy a round, and I like
Right.
that. It was really fun. It was just a good scene all around. And you see Peggy Carter in that dress and how the whole place just like stops, and that's a great moment for them. I really
Mhm.
enjoy that.
Yeah,
Great.
I like the character work in this movie. Again, it's clear to me that I just like those Marcus and McFeely writers. I think they do a good job,
Hmm.
and obviously work well with the Marvel higher ups because they've been around a while,
Yes.
starting from this movie forward.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. They do some really really good stuff. Because they have writing credits in Endgame, and they make it
Well,
all the way through, right?
they just wrote
It's all them.
they wrote
Yeah.
Infinity War and Endgame. Yeah,
Yeah. No, I meant that as a joke.
okay,
They kind of went all the way to the end, and
yeah,
yeah,
they did
good for
it.
them because they to me this is one of the things, and I question the hardest because Captain America is obviously such a core character of the whole MCU, and when the Captain America writers do write the universe building stuff, where it is Endgame, Infinity War, and all that kind of stuff, it works so well that any attempt outside of that to handle anything with Captain America in is kind of weird now. It kind of is that weirdness, right? When we have Age of Ultron, that does get fumbled a little bit. Maybe we'll see when we get there, or we have gotten there, right?
Well,
But
here's the thing.
yeah,
I don't know if you want to just revisit all the MCU at this point.
yeah, maybe
Well, we'll see what happens when we
we'll
get to
definitely
this.
see
We did already do Age of Ultron, though.
for sure. And yeah, it is revisiting it now would be interesting. Um,
Oh,
but Age of Ultron definitely feels mishandled from a whole ensemble movie versus when the McFeely and God, what else is
Marcus.
Marcus
Marcus
and
and
McFeely
Matthew. Yeah.
handle that kind of stuff. No matter which characters they're handling, it works really really
I
well.
mean, the good
And
thing
they
is
balance Captain America well too.
for Infinity War, and I'm sure Endgame, just because of how the writing process worked for those movies, the good thing to know is that like they weren't like, oh, we're just doing this on their own. Like James Gunn would come in
Yes,
for Guardians dialogue. Ryan Coogler was um not to the same extent as James Gunn, but Ryan Coogler was consulted about Black Panther.
yeah,
Um so it does feel like they were more collaborative that way.
right.
Um I mean, I will stay away from the Joss Whedon stuff, but like
Mhm.
I feel like I've said this before. Like he didn't. I'm happy for what he did for Avengers. Like that obviously was quite the task that like that's quite the accomplishment that he pulled off. No one's taking anything away from what Buffy means to people and a bunch of the other shows he did, but it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like he's as collaborative.
No,
It's
and yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is you see this in the writing where they are very collaborative. I think that's the best way to put it. That's the word I was searching for is how good they are as a writing team with everyone else.
yeah. So and then that shows when by the time you see the difference between an Age of Ultron and an Infinity War. And yes, Age of Ultron was made at a weird time. That was made when I
Yes.
think Ike Perlmutter was still involved and they had that I don't remember what they called it, but it was like basically this council that would pretty much make movies worse.
Mm,
So that's not all on Joss, but I do feel like uh, Captain America, Winter Soldier, First Avenger, and Winter Soldier were also made in that same era, and they feel better
yes,
than an Age of Ultron.
correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's all
that's
I have
fair.
to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Um, Yeah, this writing team is definitely fantastic with these characters. They really handle them well. Even if it's like a small character, they're like, no, they really, really handle them well.
Yeah, I think they do team stuff really well. Because even by the time we get to Winter Soldier, that's a team up movie as well. It's not Infinity War level, but it is like to handle having Black Widow and Falcon in that movie.
Yeah, because they're
And
handling
Nick Fury,
more
sorry, I should
shield
say.
stuff
Like
too.
Nick Fury actually is a real character in that movie. He's not just showing up. It's like,
Yeah.
no, this is a Nick Fury movie as well. To have those 4 leads in addition to the, and again, I love when they have multiple bad guys like Batroc, Crossbones, and Winter Soldier and Pierce. Like all of that stuff is going on as well. It just seems like they know how to juggle a lot of characters.
Yes.
Especially in this movie, as the one we're actually talking about. Like, as I said, no one feels like they're just in there to have like an emotional boost. It feels like these are real people and that they're worth being invested in.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It just, you want them to write more. It's almost, you know, it's they're really,
like, I'm not saying I wish they wrote everybody's movies. It's just I'm glad they wrote the movies they did.
Correct.
Other than Thor: Dark World, I don't know what happened there. That one we're gonna get to, but they did write that one as well. So it's like maybe Thor's. I mean, Taika and the people who wrote Thor: Ragnarok knew what they were doing. Is all I could say.
Yeah.
There's no post credit on this one because it's just the trailer for Avengers, which was amazing when I saw it in theaters. I was like, oh my god, it's happening. Cool.
That is one of the biggest things about this movie is just, and they don't get why this doesn't get shit on so much as like Iron Man 2 for being like, oh, it's just a setup for the Avengers. And what?
No, I meant the post-credit scene is literally just the trailer for Avengers.
Oh, I get that, but it's just like, with that being said, like this completely avoids that criticism too of being like, oh, it's a direct setup for the Avengers, even though it had like direct Avengers like setup stuff there too. And it's kind of interesting how it does that. But I feel
like the direct Avenger setup stuff is only retroactively. Like you could be like, oh, they were looking for the Tesseract that was in Captain America, but like that is true. That doesn't feel like you would know that watching the movie.
That is true because it's so hard to think about these movies from before they were released to now. But before they were released, those small little tidbits were like, Jesus Christ, this is really a big thing. It's so cool what's happening. And they're treating the characters right. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think this is really well done. Unfortunately, that leads to me being like, I don't have much else to say.
That is the truth. Unfortunately, that is the truth.
What other characters? I mean, we didn't talk about Red Skull basically at all. I liked the performance. I always liked him as a villain, but I know people were kind of like, meh. And I was like, I don't know, man. That worked for me. Like,
I don't know. Red Skull's one of those characters where I want to see more of, and I'm glad he came back and he wore the way he did.
I mean, he literally never deals with Captain America again, and he's such a I only know him as a Captain America villain, and I'm not even saying like, oh, I wish they changed that, because there's no real way to change it. It's just nice that we saw the character again. It wasn't Hugo Weaving, but it was still nice to see the character again. But yeah, what I liked about him in this movie is his bit of humanity is the jealousy he has. That is like, wait, Erskine wanted you, what the hell, and just the anger he has when he's like, what's so special about you, and Cap's just like, I'm just a boy from Brooklyn, and he the way he hits him, that it's that wasn't to look cool, that was him genuinely frustrated of fuck, this nobody gets the same power as I have. I really like that he was trying to make himself feel better about this, and it was Cap was not giving him an inch. He's just like, no, I'm not like you. I'm not special at all. Sucks for you, I guess.
That speech of you and I both recognize that we have left humanity behind was whoa, that's how fucking crazy his worldview is. It's nuts. And that pure emotion. this character is so fantastic to me.
Mhm.
And it's I wanted to see more. It is a shitty situation with this character, but I'm glad to see him again in the Infinity War thing for sure.
Yeah, like I thought that was a cool way to bring him back. Obviously we were robbed of the moment where Cap has to bring back the Soul Stone and have to be like, wait, you again? But like,
Yeah. Oops.
but eh, I'm glad we ended where we ended with Cap. But like it is a very interesting, like, I just feel like they pulled off all, and I really liked Zola. Like I remembered him from the comics as well, and like they do that thing where he's kind of like in the TV screen. I'm like, yeah, like the comics, I get it.
Yeah, I like how they did it right away. Like that's it. Like the first shot of him is like
Mhm.
in that like thing, and then you get to see him, and I'm like, oh, that is a really nice thing.
And then they pay it off in the next movie. So like it's not like there's like a long waiting of like, oh, when are they gonna do Zola? It's like, oh, there it is. Like that's Zola in Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
But yeah, I thought that was a really cool character as well.
yeah.
Um, there's literally no more characters to talk about.
There is no more characters to talk about.
It's all good.
This movie is fantastic, and that is one of those things that is, you're right, is one of the biggest issues with a really well done movie that we both agree on. Is just, did you
Yeah.
like this part? Yeah, it's cool. It's,
Oh, I also like this. Me too.
and it stands up to, I guess, the point of getting there is, what is the ultimate rating, right? Because ultimately we're doing this to see whether or not it stands up, whether or not it's higher than where we thought it would be before, and all that kind of stuff, and where it fits in with our overall viewing of this in our like overall ranking episodes, which you can obviously go back in history and watch. I don't know which numbers those are, but where's the
I'll look
rank?
it up as you keep
Yeah,
talking.
we'll definitely have to look it up. But the ranking now, where does it stand? Is it higher? Is it lower? It's just, I'm interested to see where your number is, for sure.
Don't ask me just yet because I'm still looking to see which episode we ranked all of the MCU. So you just keep talking. I'll
Yeah,
get
for
back.
sure.
Oh,
All
okay,
right,
episode 87.
87.
If you listen to episode 87, we talk about our ranking. I didn't really put much thought into where I put this. Now I just know what I would give it out of 10, which we will get to as well. But
Yeah.
what about you? Do you have like, do you feel that you know where it goes?
In regards to that, yeah. Yeah, in regards to where I rank it now, I don't disagree with where I put it, because
Yeah.
the issue is with the MCU, the depth of storytelling is within the investment that you put into the characters and the time you spend with the movies and all that kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
So the idea that this would be ranked higher now as a movie independently would just be based on the idea of like, oh, I would like this more because it's a solo movie without that interconnectedness need for it, which is not my argument whatsoever. I am very pro the Infinity War. This is the payoff that you get after years of investing into this franchise.
Mhm.
So it, to me, I don't disagree with where I would have put it in the top MCU rankings in episode 87. You said, or
87.
87? Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with it. But where it is
I don't
now
remember where I put it.
is going to be very interesting for sure.
Yeah, I have no clue where I put it. I just know I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I think. So should we just rate it then?
Yeah, I think we should just rate it
Okay.
for sure.
I would give it an 8.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's okay. I'm doing 9.5.
A what now?
9.5.
Nice. That's
Yeah,
really...
there's like in because I think about it from this perspective of like, if someone were to ask me anything wrong with this movie, I wouldn't be able to find anything. It's just so well done.
Yeah,
9.5.
I think I'm recognizing that I give this an 8 only because it's like it's not my favorite, but I don't know if it's in my top 10. It probably is, of MCU movies, but like I'm also like, it's because I was like, there's no way I would like this, even though I like Chris Evans. I don't like Captain America, and then they just completely won me over. And I'm just like,
And,
yeah.
and that's
So I'm blind to any flaws the movie might have because I'm just like, I just think that they did a good job of selling me on this character and then retroactively paying off like everything that gets started in this movie.
And I think that's why it's such a high ranking for me, because it to me, this was the hardest character by far to get me on board with, and it's always got me wanting more, and that's tough. Versus like if the Thor franchise was like, we're not doing a Thor 3, I'd be like, I would understand why.
Yeah, that's fine.
Or like, the other franchises, or whatever, them saying like, well, we're not making a Hawkeye solo movie. I'm like, I would understand why. If they were like, we're not telling any more Captain America movies, I legit feel upset about that. With the Endgame situation is like, oh, okay, we're really done with it. Don't get me wrong, it's a good send off to the character, but I really genuinely want more from that character too.
I mean, yes, he became a character that I was genuinely like, even if he doesn't die in Endgame, I can't imagine him being back like for Captain America 4, and like that sucks. I will miss him that way, but I also kind of like, I'm glad they paid it off. Like he got what he wanted.
Yes.
Out of this, he knows his friend Bucky is fine, and he can have a life with Peggy. That's nice. Yeah. Good for him.
Beautiful. It's wonderful.
So yeah, that's Captain America, the first Avenger. We did it. I genuinely was surprised by your ranking.
Really?
But I'm glad. I mean your rating, not ranking. I'm surprised by your rating. I just thought like, oh, you'd be closer to mine.
This movie is just fantastic to me. It is all around. It sold me on this character so well, and it, like I said, it was going to be the hardest character for me to get on board with, and it just does that so well.
For me, it was Thor and Cap, just like you, the hardest. I mean, I don't like Hulk. I'm never gonna be on board for a Hulk movie, but like, I thought that Avengers did a good job of being like, no, this is the Hulk now, and I was like, great, perfect. Yeah. But Thor and Captain America, I was just like, I don't know, man. And Thor, the movie, sold me on the character, not necessarily more Thor movies. Whereas this one, I'm like, I am in for this character, and I need more movies of Captain America.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, good job, Kevin Feige, Joe Johnston, Marcus McFeely, and everyone else who was involved in this. That's that. I guess that's what I mean to say is, as Ben said, we are part of the That Shelf Podcast Network, and that means that we are at the same home as Bad Game Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels, Composers, No Budget Nightmare, What a Great Theme Song, and more. So please head on over there, thatshelf.com. You can go to the podcast section and find great podcasts to listen to. You can listen to older episodes of Spoiled Rotten on tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. You can contact us on Twitter at tdfspoiled. You can email us spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Radio Public, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, all sorts of things. So please rate, review, subscribe on your podcatcher of choice, and share it with your friends.
That's right.
Are we missing something?
Don't think so. I think we're all good there.
Excellent.
Yep. Tell us how much you agree, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Definitely the next episode. All right. Bye-bye.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.